The Lord wants all his children to partake of the eternal blessings available in his temple. He has directed what each person must do to qualify to enter his holy house. All requirements to enter the temple relate to personal holiness. To assess that readiness, each person who wants to enjoy the blessings of the temple will have 2 interviews. First, with a bishop, bishopric counselor, or branch president. Second, with a stake or mission president or one of his counselors. In those interviews, several questions will be asked. Some of those questions have recently been edited for clarity. I would like to review them for you now. Are you a full tithe payer?
Concerns marriage. Marriage is central to the purpose of mortal life and what follows. We are children of a loving Heavenly Father who created us with the capacity to follow his commandments to multiply and replenish the earth. That power of creation is one of the most precious gifts we have in mortal life. But central to that gift is the law of chastity, the commandment that our powers of procreation be expressed only within marriage between a man and a woman. That commandment is central to the gospel of Jesus Christ. That reality explains why we have different values and refrain from certain behaviors that seem common among many around us. Our attitude toward the definition of marriage and toward marriage itself are examples of that. Leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ are uniquely concerned about recent changes in the nature and extent of marriage in the United States. This includes the increasing tendency of U.S. citizens, including some worthy young Latter-day Saint men and women, to postpone marriage. To demonstrate that tendency, let us look at 2 charts on marriage. While these figures are for the United States, they represent a worldwide problem. The first chart shows the significant reduction in the percent of citizens in the United States who have ever married. In the last 30 years, this percent drops 8 to 9 percentage points for both men and women. Marriage is clearly on the decline in the United States. This second chart shows a related increase in the age of marriage of young Latter-day Saints. This portrays the average age of Latter-day Saint men and women at the time of their first marriage. It shows an increase of about 5 years for both men and women. Consider what young adult Latter-day Saints miss when their marriages are intentionally delayed for a significant period. Opportunities lost and blessings postponed. This means delays in the important personal growth that occurs in the relationship between a man and a woman, husband and wife, growth in such qualities as sacrifice and humility. It means decreased opportunities to work together to build the kingdom of God. And most important, it means fewer children born to grow up with the blessings of the gospel. You know all of this, and you need to know that your leaders know that many of our singles are not marrying sooner for reasons beyond their control. I will.
The thumbnail picture. I'm sure she's single, right? She's available. And if I remind her that the Book of Mormon is the keystone and that First Nephi chapter 1 verse 2 is the learning of the Jews. Therefore, she's not supposed to use Christian Jesus interpretation on the Book of Mormon and on Joseph Smith, let alone epic. That she'll then, her eyes will be all wide open and she'll read it and she'll learn a whole lot more than Christian Jesus did. As you have to change history and you have to change science to conform and comply to the literal history Book of Mormon, which is now epic history Book of Mormon. But this is a shock to Mormons. They're still not aware of this. That just happened today. Right? She's single? Yeah, no. She has to be married. I'm willing to bet you. But music and the spoken word to premiere in Spanish. So it's unclear as to whether she's doing a voiceover in Spanish or if she's doing a full revised version of it in Spanish. Let's find out. 4 narrators. Oh, you just chose the trap. Well, certainly I want to watch it if it's her. For the first time in its 100-year history, the Tabernacle Choir has a woman leading music in the spoken word. Oh, they're giving you so much agency, aren't they, women? They're not sexist whatsoever. There's only 3 pictures? You said 4. Oh, yep, there's the guy. Alex Melicio. Garna Mejia. Well, in Mexico, at least, or is it all Spanish? I'm not sure about this. The woman has the dominant name, and the man takes on the wife's name. Isn't that correct? Or is it the children takes on the mother's name? Or it's the dominant? I don't know. It's confusing. And so, yeah, genealogy, my hell. So, yeah, I recognize this guy, though, that Alex Melicio. Seen him before. And then another guy, Pepe Val. And then, who's the 4th? Does she at least live in Salt Lake City? If God smites down Salt Lake City, would she survive and I can save her? Be the knight in shining armor. Let's see. Mejia. Garna Mejia will narrate the spoken word in the debut broadcast. See, this is the one thing that people don't understand, that businesses fully understand, is that you have at your cashiers, the front lines of your store, attractive women. That draws in more customers. And it drives housewives crazy. But businesses make more money. It's just a fact of life. And so the church knows this. In addition to being the first Spanish narrator for the pilot, she was the first woman ever. Yeah, she'll be the first woman given this honor. So what did she do? She's being pimped out. Do you understand this? She's being pimped out. It's bad enough that Mexico has atrocities against women. Yeah, Mejia is of Mexican descent and a television journalist who didn't get murdered by any of the gangs down there. who worked in Spanish and English language news stations throughout the western United States. She's of Mexican descent. She's American. Before joining the newsroom team of the communication department for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, soon to be just the Church of Jesus Christ. Oh, we get quotes from her. Wow, okay. Get to know her. I am thrilled that viewers like my mother. Oh, she's appealing to her mother. Emotions. Will soon. It's Father's Day, though. Do you think I'll get recognized for Father's Day? No. The ex made sure of that. We'll soon hear music in the spoken words, inspiring messages in their own language. I am grateful for the opportunity. Oh, she's bearing testimony, because that's what testimonies are. It's grateful. Gratitude. That's a testimony, right? Yeah, don't look it up in the dictionary. It won't be a shock well, it will be a shock for you if you think it's gratitude. But in the underground Mormonism, it was well known that we played bingo for fast and testimony meetings. So how many people will say gratitude, I'm grateful? How many will say I'm blessed? How many will say I'm thankful? And how many will actually say I'd like to bear my testimony? And then you get some little kids who will say I bury my testimony. They're little kids. They aren't old enough to have a testimony. Then they go on missions without a testimony. And they tell the world that I'm grateful for the church to have this opportunity to commit a pyramid scam on you, to recruit you to pay tithing to the church that will not be used to help you when the end of the world happens. Since its beginning, women have lent their voices to the choir. Yeah, because they're white supremacists. That's where women belong, in a choir. That's why blacks and those of color in the church are always involved in activities for the church, for entertainment purposes. Kings and queens, this is where it comes from. They're the court jesters. They're Wacky Bruce. The Jim Carrey, he's gets to be God for a day. Lassos the moon, literally, not epically, literally. And his wife becomes more well-endowed, or is she just a girlfriend? Can't remember. Are they living together in sin, or are they legally and lawfully wedded in the Mormon temple? See, they're not saying if she's got a husband and family. Building on their legacy as a female narrator. Yeah, she's single. That's shocking. She's available. And I can't tell age anymore. I'm too old. I can't do it. Yeah, that was it. Choir historian? Seriously? We have make-work callings in the church. I'm the choir historian. They used to have an almanac. That took care of this. Don't know why they don't bring the almanac back. So this is just ridiculous. How much time did I waste here at the end? Travis Wayne Goodsell. We got to continue on with Garna Mejia because there's more evil that the church is involved with, as she is a victim of the church, as she's being pimped out. So their intention for her, it's in the church news. You have to see the other video. It's got the same picture, so don't be confused. It's a different video. She's going to be first up for the Spanish music and the spoken word. And so she's the first woman to ever do this. And the church is, of course, touting it to show they're not sexist. Give women the priesthood and priesthood office like Joseph gave women. You know, from the Joseph Smith Papers, the new epic. And so, on the surface, you'd think, wow, the church is, letting women be in positions of attention and showing that they're no longer sexist and blah, blah. No. You've missed the whole point because of her background. She's a television journalist for her career. She is a Mormon girl who instead of getting married at 11 years old and having babies every year, 34, I think was the number I calculated in the other video I did earlier, the hour-long one. That's what Oakes told the little girls in that devotional the other weekend that they needed to do. Despite the economy, gotta have faith in Jesus. And so she chose to get an education, get a career. And she's very good at her career. Because she's worked in a number of, let's read her resume here, because they focus on her as they're pimping her out. She's a television journalist who worked in Spanish and English language news stations throughout the western United States before joining the newsroom team of the communications department for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so she's been sidetracked from being a journalist for the church into a communications newsroom. And so I don't think it's the church news that she's doing articles for. It's communications press that I think it's referring to here. It's unclear. The church loves to complicate things with titles. But she's doing music and the spoken word now. And music and the spoken word, she has to go through Mormon scriptures to develop a warm and fuzzy message while music is playing by the Tabernacle Choir. And she has to use Christian Jesus interpretation rather than learning of the Jews. And so she's a disobedient, naughty girl. Do you understand this? This is how the church views her. She pursued an education and a career. She didn't get married. She's not having babies. And so the church, disappointed with her career choice, diverted her into the communications department and now is diverting her into the spoken word so that she can be immersed in Christian interpretation of Mormon scriptures, Mormon doctrine. and often using Nelson's higher law changes to interpretation, that anybody with a knowledge of scriptures and English or Spanish would go, "What the hell did he just say? He did what? He changed what?" And yeah, the manuals are being changed for every talk that Nelson gives where he changes things that aren't supposed to be changed. When it's one thing that Christians get it wrong with their Christian interpretation, it's another thing to be even wrong above and beyond that. As he tries to impress Mormons by thinking he knows Hebrew, because he had to counsel with 2 Hebrew scholars at BYU who don't know Hebrew, for one example. And so, do you see what the church is doing? She's been a naughty girl, so they're now putting her in the spotlight, because they say they're hoping that this change will motivate more television and radio stations to carry our program. And also be out in front for Mormon men who will want to marry her and put her picture on their background on their computers and laptops. who know she'll never be theirs. Because she uses Christian Jesus interpretation rather than the learning of the Jews interpretation. So, yeah, this is disturbing. This isn't something good the church is doing here. They've got ulterior motives, and it's multifaceted. They're pimping her out so that they get more attention for their show. But they're also pimping her out because they disapprove of her career choice. And so they're wanting her to get married and get to work on making babies. Which, adorable babies, definitely, but the church is disapproving of her choice in life. And I don't know why she's not married. You know, maybe it's because she's been taken around to the different companies because of her careers, so that she doesn't have time to date anybody. So she's probably one of those Mormon women who think that she'll focus on her education and a career, and then when she's in her 40s, then she'll find the perfect Mormon boy who's never been married and who's rich and will take care of her, and she can then have 1.5 kids and live happily forever eternity. I don't know. But there are women in the church who think that way. And it's sad in the older singles ward, because women are losing hope. They're in their final years, and it's sad. So, yeah, the church is sexist. Don't be fooled. Travis Wayne Goodsell. I guess we can call this part 3 of the defense of Garna Mejia. The sexist segment of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I've had to come to the defense of women because I know the church is corrupt and wicked. When the Book of Mormon, which is the keystone of Mormonism, says that it is to be interpreted in the learning of the Jews. A whole domino effect takes place. Now, as I read the Book of Mormon, I see the Book of Mormon differently, because I'm not using Christian Jesus goggles to interpret the Book of Mormon. And in so doing, so also with Joseph Smith and all of his writings. And so with the Church of Jesus Christ, obviously they're lying to us. They are deceiving us. And so the videos I do expose what the church is up to, expose the church's crimes. And so when a simple church news article comes out that has Garna being chosen for the first Spanish spoken word, the majority of people who don't know what I know don't see anything in this. They see this as, oh, great. A woman of strength and power, an education, and a career field is being chosen by the church to do this project. They don't see that the church is exploiting her, that the church is using her to set an example that they really don't approve of her. And so this added segment explains that the church disapproves of her career because she was a journalist. As a journalist, you're supposed to investigate. You know, it was journalists who took down a president of the United States. And because of that, we don't see journalists doing that anymore. Even Bob Woodward was able to interview Trump and expose Trump, and he went and published a couple of books. And yet our day and time can no longer take down a president. Even when we get him on tape committing high treason, it's still not good enough. We still can't take down a president. But this is why the press is in the First Amendment, is that they are the fourth estate, the fourth in the checks and balances of our government. It's not just the legislative, the executive, and the judicial that keep checks and balances on each other, as Biden was supposed to declare martial law against Congress for seditious insurrection, so that the debt would be handled that way, according to the 14th Amendment. But the press is supposed to be uncovering all of the scandals in our government and in our society, so that when a religion is acting corruptly and harming its people, we would hope that the press would be free to investigate and to expose them so that our government may know and put a stop to it. But the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is so powerful and so wealthy that they own the press, especially here in Utah. But the press has come out against the church in the national and world press, especially in these latter days. We have 60 Minutes Australia and the press in Australia that expose the church's violations of Australian law. We have Canada, I think it's called the Fifth Estate, that exposed the church and their crimes in Canada. And then we've had the New York Times that's exposed the church. We've had the Associated Press lately that's exposed the church. And the church can only come out and deny. And with 60 Minutes, they just slam the church. And the church could only reply, how could they do this to us? Well, it's simple, you're corrupt. And they've even managed to control the Salt Lake Tribune, sorry. I can't remember her name. She usually does the articles critical of the church, but she doesn't do a thorough investigation. The church will not allow her. Her Tribune will not allow her to do the necessary investigation of the church. Fox 13 News Utah, whenever there's a scandal that goes national about the church, they'll do a Fox 13 News investigates. They don't investigate, they just report what they're told to read. And so, for Garna, she's trained as a journalist. She's got experience with this. But then the church got a hold of her because she's not married. And they brought her in to work for them in the communications department for the church news. I don't know what her specific job is and what that entails, but it requires her to be compromised. She cannot be free to follow her education. And we saw this exact same thing with the psychologist, Natasha Helfer. The church owned her. She had to do what the church wanted. And when she went according to the medical science, which is even contrary to her own field in psychology, because psychology is anti-science. That's why the church embraces psychology so much, that the church excommunicated her. You don't go against the church, even if it's true. Even if the investigation is true. This is what I do. I don't fear the church, that they're a criminal mob who threatens my life and who've tried to murder me. I know the church is false. They can't just threaten me to conform and comply and say, oh, okay, you're true. It's Christian Jesus, okay. Please don't hurt me. I'll do whatever you want. But that's what other people are faced with. My brother was faced with this. The church threatened his job to come after me, his brother. And if he didn't conform and comply, he would lose his job. And it's a situation where he was compromised by the church. He was educated by the church at BYU. And so it involves psychology. And so the church had already weakened him with incorrect knowledge. But Garna, she's an outsider. I'm not sure her education, they don't tell us, but her work has taken her throughout the western United States. She hasn't been really a focus here in Utah. until the church grabbed her and are now exploiting her because she's not married. She needs to be married. And the church, by bringing her into Utah, was hoping to get her married because she can't be a journalist. And so they bring her into the church news to get her focused away from her education, to only praise the church, to only report the good things about the church, to stay away from investigating the church as her education taught her to do. And so now, apparently, they have to pull her even further away, because music and the spoken word is where she has to study her scriptures and study the words of Nelson and make presentations that further push the Mormon agenda, the Mormon doctrine, which is anti-science, which is anti-press, because it's full of lies, it's full of misrepresentation, misinformation, deception. And so I see the exploitation that the church is doing to Garna, so that she thinks she's being given an improvement in her status. She's being used by the church. And she obviously does not know this. Or she's a woman, she's just conforming and complying because she's been kidnapped by the church. And she has to do it or she will lose her job. See, I don't fully know how many Mormons are still in the church because of fear versus how many Mormons are still in the church because of ignorance versus how many Mormons are in the church because of knowing the church is false and still sticking with it willingly. I don't know those statistics. There's no way to know those statistics because they are in the minds of the individuals. And so, yeah, this is a sad reality that all Mormons face. That if you do not conform and comply to the church, they hunt you down. They punish you. And there have been numerous examples of this. And so it's unclear as to why Mormons are still Mormon and why they are not standing up and saying, no more. That's enough. This must end. And so, yeah, I've had to come to the rescue of other women as well. It's me, Jessie. She's not Mormon, but Mormon apologists like Kwaku attack her as she's investigating the church and is finding out the faults of the church, the serious problems of the church. And here you have Mormons who attack her because she's finding out things that disturb her. This is not how you win people over to the church, because it took her further away from the church when the church attacked her. But again, I stepped in to defend her. Even ex-Mormons, ex-Molex, I did the videos when she was going to be interviewed by a sexually deviant psychologist, trying to warn of what was being done to her. And so it's not necessarily the church, but those who have been indoctrinated by the church who then are weaponized in their own field to attack other people who have left the church. Those too need to be protected. And that one didn't come off well. I lost the majority of my audience trying to protect Exmo Lex. So here I am, standing up for a woman I know nothing of, simply because I know that the church is exploiting her. And she needs to be set free.